Good morning, welcome to Furry and Spoilt. Today I'm going to talk to you about dogs' anal glands. Yeah, owning dogs is so great. I love it so much. It's so great. But there is just some disgusting elements to it, and this is one of those disgusting elements. However, as always, if you live with dogs, you need to know about them because anal glands are probably going to come up at some point in the dog's life. And if they're not looked after properly, it can get into emergency situation and get quite awful for the dog. So if you don't know what anal glands are, inside, I just warn you, there's nothing nice about this. You know me, it is what it is. So inside the dog's bottom, towards the bottom, there are two sacs. And these sacs contain a liquid, and that liquid really stinks. And the idea is that when they go to toilet, not to have a piddle, but when they have a poo, the liquid goes onto the poo, and therefore that is scent marking. So you know, like when dogs sniff other dogs' poo, they can tell how old the dog is, what sex the dog is, what status the dog is, things like that. That's how it works. What sometimes happens, and most dogs, I mean, I've got 3 dogs right now, and Hump's here and little Albert down there, their anal glands are fine, and it should just all work by itself naturally, and you never ever know about it, you never have to deal with it. Sometimes you get dogs, and I've got Harry at the back there on the sofa, him and my last dog that I had, they always had problems with their anal glands. They just didn't ever work properly. And if that isn't dealt with, that can go on to cause some really big problems. So hopefully it's all working fine. You'll never know about the anal glands. You'll never have to deal with any of this. But there are signs that a dog's anal glands are getting full. And it just basically means that the liquid isn't going out. Now, that can be because when they're pooing, the poo isn't hard enough, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But the sacs can just get full, and if they don't empty, they can get compacted, that can get infected, it can lead to abscesses, it can get really nasty. So the signs, the biggest sign that your dog is having problems with his anal glands, and the most common one that you will always see, is what they call scooting on the ground. And it's the strangest thing to watch. And it's basically, they are like in a sit position, and they drag their bottom, and they're pulling themselves forward with their front legs. And they'll often go to do it on a carpet or somewhere like that. And sometimes that will empty the sacs. Unfortunately, that can mean that is happening on your carpet, and that is no fun because the liquid that comes out absolutely stinks. So if your dog is doing this scooting, it doesn't mean that he's always able to empty them. That can mean that it's impacted and that there's a problem. Now, you can go to the dog regularly, you can go to the vet regularly and get them expressed, and they basically just put their finger in. It isn't painful for the dog, and they just press it and it just releases it. Or sometimes your groomer will do it, or the things you can do so that you can deal with that yourself, and I'll go through that in a minute. So the drag in the bottom is the most common sign that there's a problem. Another thing that you'll sometimes see is dogs walking with really stiff back legs. And that's because it hurts them to walk, and so they've stiffened up their back legs. And another really common thing is for them to keep going at their bottom, like licking it or chewing it. They're all signs that there's a problem with the anal glands. Now, you can just take them straight to the vets and get them expressed, and they'll do that, and that's great. What I do is, so with Harry at the back here, he has problems often. So I will deal with it and it will all be fine, and then he'll maybe scoot and I'll realise that maybe they're getting full again. But what I do is I put carrots in. I give him some raw carrot every day. So probably from the end of my finger up to where my thumb is, about that length of just raw carrot every day. And that sorts him out so well. And we can go a long time and there can be no problems at all. The reason that the carrot works is because they don't actually digest carrot particularly well. And so it comes out sort of the way it went in. And it basically means that it's able to bulk the poo up and make the poo firmer. Because often the reason that anal glands aren't getting emptied is because their poo isn't firm enough. And even though all of my boys are on exactly the same food and the other two don't suffer at all, Harry for some reason just always has. And so I give them all a little bit of carrot every day, but I give Harry the biggest bit, and he loves it. Luckily, they love carrots, and they're really good for dogs, and they're really good for their teeth because they have to chew them, and so it's a really good thing. There's no calories in it. Now there is some sugar, so you've got to go a bit careful. Don't give them too much. I had a German Shepherd who used to have problems with anal glands, and he was a German Shepherd, so obviously and he was a big German Shepherd at that. And so I choose to give him a whole carrot every day. But obviously with smaller dogs, you don't want to go so much with that. But the carrot really, really does well. It really is good at making the poos bigger and firmer, so that when he goes to toilet, the anal gland, the liquid comes out of the anal glands. Now, sometimes when I notice Harry is not doing very well, he came from such awful beginnings that he had stomach problems and things, and although I've sorted them all out and it's all great, he does sometimes, his poos are just a little bit runnier. And if that happens for, like, say, sometimes it will just happen for a day or two, they'll just be a little bit not as firm as normal. And that's when I notice that he might scoot his bum. And it's because his poos just weren't firm enough to empty the sacs out. So that's when I will up his carrot and get him back on track. And it always works. So like I said, like I just showed you, that amount of carrot, just fresh carrots, just, go and buy them from your supermarket or whatever. And that always has stopped the problems and sorted it out. Because in the beginning, when we first got him, his anal glands were such a problem that I had to keep going to the vets, and they were having to keep emptying them for him. But then researching it, and I thought, I've got to find a way to bulk up his poo. And carrot is the simplest way to do that. And there's no problems at all. Now, something that you do have to watch but there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. If your dog has got a problem, so like there's an example. All three of these had a sickness bug about a month ago. I think they'd all eaten something disgusting out on the walk or something had happened, but all three of them had bad tummies. And these two had a bad tummy, got over it, everything was fine. Only lasted a day, but they were all squatty for a day. I have done a whole video about that, what to do with if your dog's got bad tummy and stuff. It's called Let's Talk About Dog Poo. Honestly, my channel, it's not, I think Fairy and Spoilt sounds like it's all cute and fluffy, doesn't it? And it so isn't. I'll put that video up at the end. But after they had this bug, Harry then, his anal glands needed doing. So I noticed he scooted his bum a little bit. So I gave him some extra carrot, which was great. But obviously, I think what had happened was he'd been to the toilet, had the thicker, bigger poo, and it hadn't properly cleared the anal glands. It had maybe loosened them up or something, but it hadn't properly cleared them. He then came running in here, had a wriggle around on the sofa, and the liquid all came out, and it stinks like it's the most awful smell. And so I sat on the sofa and I was like, oh no, that does not smell good. And luckily it was on the blankets, and so I was able just to wash the blankets and it was fine. Fortunately, there's not a lot you can do about that, because you can't possibly know when your dog's gone to toilet whether or not he's expressed all the liquid out. So if you do have a dog that suffers with anal glands, it can be a bit hit and miss at times. But I've always found the carrot thing to sort it out. Always. I haven't had to use anything else or go to anything else. That has always sorted it out. And then when we've got a long stint, if there hasn't been any problems with his stomach or anything, then he doesn't have problems with his anal glands, because the poos are solid enough from the carrot for the liquid to come out of them when he goes to toilet. So if your dog doesn't have issues like these two, then you don't need to be worrying about it. Nature will just will just do what it does. I do give them both a little bit of carrot, but only because Harry has carrot, so they're going to want carrot, obviously. But Harry has a much bigger piece than they do. They just have a couple of little slices of it. and he has the bigger piece. Although there is nothing wrong with giving your dog's carrot if they don't have anal gland issues. It will all help bulk them out. It all helps. I'm just, you know, aware of it just isn't something I do. It's just, you know, I think out their diet and treats and everything well, and I just don't want them to have the big bits of carrot. But there's no reason why you couldn't do that. It's a really good treat for a dog, and it's much better than some of the treats that are in the shops and stuff. So it's a good treat for dogs. But I've always found that the carrot really works just when we're on just normal day-to-day life. But if now, this is something else I want to talk to you about. You can express their anal glands yourself, and if you look around, there are many places that will describe to you how to do it. I think the thing is, you know, I've had dogs for a very long time. I'm very experienced with dogs, and I'm very familiar with dogs and how things work. And so I would do it myself if I had to do it, but it's probably not advised if you don't know what you're doing. So certainly if it's your first dog, if you haven't had dogs, go to the vet and get them to do it. It doesn't cost much. It isn't unpleasant for the dog. And then maybe in life as you get more experienced, or maybe if you watch the vet, maybe the vet will even show you, I don't know. Then you could do it yourself. But it's just something to be aware of. Like, is your dog a dog that suffers with it? Or I've never known a dog ever to be okay, but then just have an anal gland episode. I've never known that. Our dogs have either suffer with their anal glands or they don't. It doesn't mean all dogs are like that, but you know, I come across a lot of dogs and I've never known it. It's always been one or the other, and I'm just lucky at the moment that two of them are all doing, they're fine, then they don't have problems. Just poor little Harry over here that does. So I hope that helps. So if you don't know, if you're new to the dog world, and your dog is scooting along or keeps going at his bottom, if he's licking it a lot, or if he's chewing it a lot, then you probably need to get your dog to the vet for the anal glands. And if you know my channel, if you subscribe to me, you know I'm not one for rushing to the vets all the time. Far from it. I think vets do a whole load of unnecessary work just to make money. And so I'm far from one for rushing to the vet. But if your dog is showing any of those signs, then I think you should and get them done. So that's it. The next video I'm doing is a bit more pleasant. I'm going to talk to you on Tuesday about trimming dogs' nails. That is another, I think trimming dogs' nails is one of the hardest things about owning dogs. I think it's really tricky. And so we've got Humps here, obviously, so he's from Korea, and can be a little bit aggressive sometimes. If he doesn't like what you're doing, he'll bite you. Not me, thankfully, he's never bitten me, but you have to be very careful with what you're doing with him. So I'm going to talk to you about how I get around his nail problem. I've got a little Alba over here who is the sweetest little dog, but he wriggles like anything when you're doing it. And then we've got Pickle Boy over there. He's quite good. He just lets you get on with it, really. But I'm just going to go through with you how I get around that, because it's not easy. Having a dog that won't let you trim the nails, it's on your mind all the time. It's horrible. So I'll talk to you about that in the next video, which will be on Tuesday. So you know where I am as always. Dog tip of the day on Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. And then videos on here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you've got any questions at all about your dog, don't hesitate to ask me. I'm more than happy to help. It's the whole point of Fairy and Spoilt, to help your dogs. If you haven't subscribed, please do, because I do videos twice a week on here, and I really talk about the subjects that Fairy and Spoilt is so misleading to what this channel is about. I get down and dirty with the subjects that, you know, we need to talk about as we live with dogs and help them out. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely day, and we will see you in the next video. Bye bye.